The shadow of the earth covers the moon, and eventually a tiny sliver of light will come out the other side. It's hard for a lot of us to realize that we've never actually seen the moon. We either see what the moon looks like in the sun's light or the way the moon looks in the earth's shadow. But the moon itself doesn't have its own light. It doesn't glow unless light is added to it. And it's only in that addition of light that we can see what is there. So many spiritual traditions tend to look at darkness as something that's evil or sinister, instead of just the space that it is, that everything absent of light is in shadow. The same is true within us. If you close your eyes, don't do it if you're driving, but if you close your eyes, you're greeted by that darkness within us. It is a darkness that remains until we bring light to it. I want to talk about this spaciousness within, this inviting canvas that darkness really is, as we walk together down Creation's Path. Hello everyone, my name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Brigid.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the dark.
Today we're going to be talking about spiritual darkness, but not evil, not our shadow selves, not any crude or evil thing, because too often we conflate darkness with evil, when without darkness there's no form. If there's only light, everything is even and spaced and you can't see anything. Darkness is a womb, a place that we can paint on. It gives shape and form, and I think it's rather unrecognized as a place for us to find hope and meaning. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss anything. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So, Brian, how is your internal darkness today?
It is not still. There's no stillness in darkness. It's not chaotic.
I think it's interesting how you had to think about it, how you had to actually start questioning things. The reason we equate darkness with bad is because, as H.P. Lovecraft said in his treatise on supernatural horror, the oldest and strongest emotion of humankind is fear, and the greatest of these is the fear of the unknown. The darkness is the ultimate unknown, because you can't see what's there. It's why our eyes play tricks on us at night, because they're desperately trying to find any possible threats that might be lurking in the shadows. And so our brain is taking any pattern that it can find and going, is that a monster? Is that a snake? Is that a wolf? What is that? Have the lions come to get us again? Please tell me that's not a hyena, because it is trying to keep us safe. It is projecting our own internal instinctive fears into the darkness because it cannot see what is there. And you can, if you listen to that conversation I just had with Brian, you see what happened. He had to turn his internal light, his internal attention into the darkness to see, hey, what is going on over there? What are you doing? He had to bring awareness to it because it is what is behind us, beneath us, below us, beyond us. It is that thing that is happening just out of our sight. For a lot of people, that causes fear. And I can understand that. We like to live in the illusion that we are in control. We like to live in the illusion that we know what's going on and what's happening. But all control is an illusion. And all knowledge is just scraping the surface of what we can actually know. You can't know anything until you have a measure to bring to it. We didn't know about the spectrum of light until we brought a prism to the light. We didn't know that infrared and ultraviolet light existed until a scientist was doing an exploration of the temperature of the different wavelengths of light and had his control on the sides in the quote-unquote shadow where there's no light, because our eyes cannot see ultraviolet and they cannot see infrared. So he was sure that there was no light there, but wait, that ultraviolet, that infrared, that place just off to the side of red got hotter. That shouldn't happen. Until you have a way to measure something, you don't know what's there. We live in a world of beautiful illusions where we tell ourselves that through our five senses, we can interact with reality, but our eyes are limited. We know that there are so many spectra that we cannot see. We can't see infrared. We can't see ultraviolet. We can't see X-rays and gamma rays and all of the other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't see the radio waves that are constantly bouncing around us, either from the cosmic background radiation or from the cell phone towers or the radio stations. We can't see any of that, but that's all there. And it is all technically a form of light. And I think that really is something we need to focus on when we're talking about darkness, this dark light, this light that exists, but we cannot see. Some of this light we can feel, like the ultraviolet and the infrared. The ultraviolet burns your skin. It's what causes sunburn. The infrared warms you. When you feel the warmth of the sun on a nice warm day, that warmth, a lot of it's coming from the infrared. When you touch the warmth and feel the warmth on someone else's skin or your own, that's the ultraviolet light shining back out. That's why we can have cameras that can do heat vision. They're not doing a magic trick. They're just tuned so that they can see the infrared and show it to us. This illusion that light is only this visible thing that we can see is just that. It is an illusion. And as we are building our scientific and rational society, it's important for us to always remember that we can only measure what we have tools to measure. We can only see what we have tools to let us see. It's why when we look at Hubble images, or when we look at images from the James Webb and we think, wow, space looks like that. Why can't we see it from here? It's because those images are showing us the infrared. They're showing us the ultraviolet. They're showing us the radio waves, the X-rays, the gamma rays. They're showing us all these spectra of light that our eyes can't perceive. That's what the night sky looks like. That's what these galaxies and nebula look like if we could see all of it. And since we can't see them, we have to pretend and say that this color means this and this color means that. So we're kind of fudging with it a bit, but it's still seen and still real. This is a difficult thing for us to accept. We want to believe that I heard the thing, so I know what happened. I saw the thing, I know what happened. I was there, I know what happened. But you know your perspective. Anything that was blinded from you, anything that was just out of your eyesight, hearing. If somebody walks up to somebody and whispers a threat to them, and that other person acts as if they were threatened, you might see the person who reacted as the aggressor because you couldn't hear the initial threat. So much of what happens in this world is beyond our perception. It happens in closed rooms and in other meetings. It happens in places that we are not. It happens in the dark spaces. And that's scary because we don't want to admit that we don't know. So many of our own internal psychology is rooted in these unknown factors, emotions that are boiling just under the surface, old memories that are writhing around back there, triggering different responses that we may not be aware of, chemical reactions that we have little to no control of, affecting the way we act and react in the moment. So much happens in the darkness. So much happens in the unseen. And on days like today, when we're celebrating the new moon, I want to invite you to embrace this darkness, this unknowing, because whether we want to admit it or not, so much of the universe happens without our knowing. You have no idea what's happening in Australia right now unless you're in Australia. And even if you're in Australia, you know what's happening in your house, in the room that you're in. You don't know what's happening 1,000 miles away from you, 100 miles, 10 miles, 1 mile, because you're not there. The key to wisdom is understanding what you do not and cannot understand so that you know the questions to ask, so that you can find the meaning that you're looking for. And I think too many of us are still acting like children and assuming that because we can see things, hear things, smell things, touch things, taste things, we know what things are. I can't see the atoms, but they are there. I want to broaden our understanding, because when we think about the Via Negativa, we're very often talking about letting things go. And we mean that like in suffering or pain, but this is one of the things we have to let go, this arrogance that our perceptions cover the whole of reality. We know just from the tools that we have available to us, that's not true. You can get a thermal imaging camera and see all the things in the world that you can't see, all of this light that you can't see. You can get ultraviolet cameras and see all these things that we can't see.
Even the night vision cameras, They seem like magic because they let us see in the dark, and really all it's doing is showing us some of the spectrum that we can't normally see, how bright it is still out there.
Most night vision just shines an infrared light out and collects what shines back. So it's using the light we can't see to collect reflections that we can't see to show us what's there that we can't see. And I think we spend too much time as humans trying to express how good we are at knowing things and neglect how bad we are at admitting all the things that we don't know. Every time you meet somebody that says, I know how the economy works, that's like saying that I can tell when you open the box how the Monopoly game is going to play out.
I can tell the future. Yeah. It's no matter how accurate you are at that, it is still future predicting. It's just as accurate as fortune telling, because the number of causes and effects in play, there's still a lot of factors we don't know, reactions that we can assume within a certain amount of accuracy, but we still don't know for sure.
Yeah, because the biggest problem with our predictive models is they're good at groups, because groups are dumb. Once you get a group of any animal together, humans included, they're dumb. They act off of basal instinct and are not too hard to predict. The problem is not everyone is going to be in on the herd. And all it takes is a few outliers to start doing something divergent from what the core is doing to move the entire herd off in a different direction. If you want to see this in action, if you live in a place where there are a lot of birds, watch the murmurations when they're flying. It only takes a couple birds to go, I'm going to fly this way. You see this little one bird flies off, then there's a couple behind it, then a couple more, then a couple more. And now the entire flock is now moving in that direction. It just takes a couple outliers to change the direction of flight for it to ripple through the entire group and change the course. And that's unpredictable. Like I said, groups are dumb and fairly predictable. But the problem is groups are easily led by these outliers. And it's almost impossible to know when and where they're going to pop up and in what directions they're going to be pulled. You can make some informed guesses, but you never really know until it happens.
And that's also going back to that's part of leaving space for that darkness to be there. Might be, say, 80% confident in your prediction. That 20% is that darkness. Yep. That part that you don't, that could be any number of things.
And as I am often prone to saying, if you think you have 80% knowledge of what's going on and 20% that you don't know, multiply that by 2 or 4. Because if you're certain about 80% of something, you probably know 60 or 40. You probably don't actually know 80, because we're very bad at overestimating our competence, our understanding, and our knowledge about things. That's that confidence, that arrogance that we're trying to break down. And this may be instilling fear in you right now. You may be really shaken at the idea of this well of uncertainty that we are swimming in. But to me, this is what gives me great courage, because you never know who that one person is going to be that's going to light the spark that takes people on a protest across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You never know who's going to be that spark that starts the bus boycotts. Remember, Rosa Parks wasn't the first person arrested for keeping her seat, but she was the spark that caught fire. Because you never know, you can't predict which one is the spark that's going to catch fire. Some sparks just fizzle out. If you've ever tried to light a fire with a fire starter, where you're just casting those sparks down at the kindling, not every spark is going to catch. Only a couple are going to catch. And it takes just the right situation for that spark to hit and the nurturing of it to bring forth an ember. While that might sound terrifying, that's empowering. Any one of us could be that one spark. Any one of us could be that one thing that suddenly moves in a different direction and the rest of society changes course with it. You just don't know. And that's the audacity we need to be operating in.
It's a shift in the mindset from darkness being an absence or a subtraction into darkness being potential. It's a space filled with potentiality, unknown potentialities, but potentialities. So then when you hear that noise or feel that stirring in the darkness, it's not giving into the fear that, oh, it's something here to hurt me. It's a potential of something new coming into your life. Now, it could be a hyena or a lion. Could also be dinner. It could be a new friend, a pet.
It could just be
It's just
the wind rustling through the trees.
which is the potential of a nice cooling breeze.
When I was growing up, one of my sisters was terrified of the dark. And I remember when I was a kid and we were living in Tennessee, her screaming. I'll never forget that scream from her bedroom. She came running out. Daddy, 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 somebody's outside my window looking in. There's a creeper outside the window looking in. There's a creeper outside my window looking in. And Dad hopped up and ran to her bedroom. And sure enough, there, clear as day in the window, were two eyes staring into the room. Dad walked up to the window sash and the eyes didn't move. And he thought, because he said out loud, that's a bold prowler. And he got up to the window where he could see better. It was our dog. We had a really big outside dog that kind of wandered to the lawn and took care of everything outside. And yeah, it was the dog sitting up the edge of the house, looking in the windows, seeing what the girls were up to. It was a big dog. His eyes were spaced just right. That, yeah, you could assume it was people's eyes looking in at you, but it wasn't. It was a dog. But her mind brought fear to it when it was actually a member of the family that was there protecting her and just curious to see what she was doing. You never know what's outside in the shadows. You never know what's outside in that darkness. You never know what's just out of sight. And if we could only overcome this arrogance that we know, this audacity that we know, because I hear so many people, I know that I know that I know that I know. Do you really? Like, we have guides that help us. We can look at, oh, well, throughout history, every time we've tried X, Y happened. We have a pretty good idea that if you do X again, Y is going to happen again, because that's how patterns work. But you can't underestimate random events. Do I feel a certain dread about the future when it comes to climate change? Yes. Yes, I do. Am I somebody who believes that technology will absolutely save us? No. No, I don't. But at the same time, I can't discount it. You never know when we're going to have somebody figure out how to do carbon capture at fast and efficient scale to be able to bring down the levels of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. You never know when we're going to hit that tipping point and everybody's going to have an electric vehicle that can go wherever they need to go efficiently, cleanly, when the power plants are going to switch over to fuels that aren't putting out so much harm into the environment. You never know. You just don't. Yeah, we can make predictions. We can have our little sense of doom, but it's never a certainty. Nothing is certain. If there's one thing that this podcast will always be about, is the attempt to just end the tyranny of certainty. Because certainty is the worst and most vile illusion that threatens us as individuals and as a species. Because the more certain we feel, the less likely we are to look for alternatives, to seek out more information in general, and the more locked into a course we become. If you want to know the true name or face of the devil, it is certainty. It is that feeling that, oh no, I know that I know, and nothing is ever going to change my mind. Yeah, that worked out well for the dinosaurs. All those allosaurs knew that there were always going to be giant sauropods running around. All they had to do was specialize in taking down giant sauropods, and they were good for all eternity. All those sauropods out there in New Mexico and Wyoming, all those allosaurs that are still, the sauropods weren't around forever. But that evolutionary certainty that this is all that they needed. Yeah, but when it goes away, certainty is a trap. And this is really the brilliance of practicing this kind of entry into the darkness, in letting ourselves understand and know what we don't know and what we can't see and what's just beyond the horizon. It's why I love the story of how we discovered infrared and ultraviolet light. It was an accident. It wasn't human brilliance. He wasn't trying to find new kinds of light. They found the light spectrum. It was very simple. It was your Roy G. Biv. And he was just trying to find out what the properties of each of those spectra were. Each spectrum, what is it? What does it do? What is each one of those streaks of light? What is its temperature? Here, I'll just lay this thermometer here and get the room temperature. And then I can compare that to the others to see if they go up or down or what happens. Why is it so much hotter where the light's not shining? That doesn't make sense. It was an accident. So many of our greatest discoveries are because of accidents or bored clerks sitting at their job with nothing to do, giving thought experiments and oopsie doodling through those thought experiments into general and special relativity. I'm not trying to take away from Einstein's brilliance or any of the work that came before him to get to that point, but if he wasn't sitting at a job that he hated, bored out of his mind because there was nothing to do, and jotting down weird random thoughts and notes as he played around and tooled around with ideas, one of those
he was basically left to sit in the darkness, started playing around and exploring it.
With such an innocuous question. If you had a person in a box where they couldn't see the outside, could they tell the difference between being on the ground at sea level or falling at exactly 9.8 meters per second squared? Could you tell the difference between being pulled up at the speed of gravity or just being on the surface of the earth? It was a simple, weird little idea, because where is this elevator? It's an impractical thought when you think about it, right? It's a silly thought. If you're in a sealed off elevator moving at just the right speed in a vacuum, could you tell the difference between that and standing on the surface of the earth? And as he started doing the math and working on it, no, you really couldn't tell. There'd be no way of knowing. And all of these great discoveries spooled out of this silly little idea. Because that's the other problem that I have with people that love certainty and don't embrace this foray into darkness. They're often the ones that don't like play and silliness. No. You have to be grown up. You have to accept that the world is the way that it is. Well, when Einstein was writing, the way the world was based off of a very set physics where there was a force of gravity that pulled down. It was kind of magic. It just pulled everything down, where he figured out that it doesn't actually pull as much as it pushes. But no, we're just going to stay with Newton. Newton figured it all out. And it didn't figure it all out. And that same arrogance I hear today, because we don't know what tools we don't have to measure. We don't know what things we have yet to stumble into that we don't have words. We know a couple of them, and you've probably heard them a lot, because even science uses this language that I'm talking about. There's no such thing as dark energy or dark matter. The reason we call them dark energy or dark matter is because our instruments are showing something is there. There's some kind of energy causing the apparent increase in the speed of inflation of the universe. We don't know what it is, so we're calling it dark energy because we don't know what it is. There's also some kind of matter that seems to be adding to gravity, but isn't interacting with any of the electromagnetic wavelengths, so we can't see it. So we call it dark matter because we don't know and we're looking. The darkness is all around us. There are so many things that we do not know. And when we let go of our certainty, we let go of our doomerism, because doomerism is a fatalistic certainty. Doom is coming. Doom, if you mean in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they've announced the casting of Doom. And yes, it is a certainty that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Doom is definitely coming. Robert Downey Jr. is going to play him, and he will show up in the movies at some point. Yes, there you go. There's your certainty. But any other kind, we don't know. And on days of the new moon, it's a good time to just remind ourselves of all that we do not know that's just outside of our vision. I hope this episode has helped you out. I'd love to know what your thoughts about all this are. How do you handle these uncertainties? Do you have any favorite meditations that you'd like to do to help you with all of this? Let me know down in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they won't let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, you can leave a message there, and we will see it and be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. You can also support us using the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you so much to everybody who already does that. You mean the world to us. You help us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our heads, and food on our table. If you don't have any money right now, or if you're not sure for the kind of people you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's fair and perfectly all right. But if we've ever said or done anything that's helped you out and you think might help others, please share it with them, because that helps us out more than you could possibly know. And as we're heading out today, I want to say a little prayer to my favorite dweller in darkness. Oh, blessed more friend, who lived in the dark tower because people recoiled at the sight of you. The one for whom the cauldron of Alwyn was brewed, and that the divine inspiration and wisdom came into the world. Help us to remember all that we know and all that we do not know. Help us to enter the darkness where you live and find all of the great secrets that are hidden within, so that we too may be counted as amongst the wisest of the wise. Amen.
Amen.